Let's roll!
Okay, why am I the one doing the intros all the time?
Because I'm trolling your speech apparatus.
Yes, my speech apparatus has been trolled enough.
No.
This is the fourth time in the last 6 months that I have a problem with my throat, and this is killing me. But anyways, what I want to talk to you about today is why do people who like IT also like all computers? Or to put it more simply, is there a reason to get an old Amiga or old C64 or old Atari portfolio as you gracefully gave me for the Christmas, or any of the old computers, since the experience that you get from those computers is regularly much worse than what you would get from actual running the actual computer in the emulator with a normal keyboard, normal mouse, and normal display and everything else.
Okay, cool. Sounds reasonable.
So having said that, let's roll the intro and then let's talk.
Okay, Mr. Old School, Old Computers, Gamers, whatever it is that you want to call yourself.
No. Now it's not just about the beam, because you were the one that connected. What was your Pentium 1? What is your computer right now? The one with the huge box, in the huge ugly case.
My SCSI only retro PC.
Yours SCSI only retro PC, the huge ugly case.
It's a dual, actually.
Yes.
Dual Pentium.
Which Pentiums are in?
If I remember correctly, Pentium's free. If I remember correctly.
1333?
No.
Pentium
something less. I think 800, 850.
Because I suddenly remember that I think that I have a Pentium S server at home that is dual Pentium. And I distinctly seem to remember that
he wanted to troll me, now he's trolling himself. That's even better.
No, it's just that I remember that I seem to remember that I have an old PC at home, and then I remember that it is standing next to a HP UX workstation that I also had at home.
He's much worse than I am.
Everybody's. I'm much worse than almost everybody else, because I get the old PCs and then I forget about them.
Can I interject?
Yes.
I have the perfect point to start.
Okay.
Atari portfolio.
Yes, it is the perfect, because okay, so Vedran got me an Atari.
Not because of that.
No, Vedran got me an Atari portfolio because I was talking about it a couple of weeks ago, and the reason why I remembered about Atari portfolio, because it was the one of those things that didn't make any sense at that point in time.
And started making a hell of a lot of sense very soon after.
Didn't start making any sense after that. Didn't make any sense now, and it's not going to make any sense either way ever. It's for all,
so it's perfect for you.
For all of you who don't follow the Atari portfolio thingy, it was an old, supposedly 16-bit computer that was able to run embedded version of MS-DOS. That was its own DOS, basically, that only had a command shell. It had a limited amount of memory. It had hugely expensive accessories.
It was expensive all by itself.
All by itself, it's something like $2,500, I think.
So crazy.
So the amount of money that you would pay for a decent laptop today, and by decent I mean much more decent than you would probably expect. I can check.
You can buy a very decent MacBook Pro for that.
It was released in 1989, I think.
Something like that, 1989, 1990.
Let me just check how much is this in today's dollars. Okay, so you would be able to buy a laptop for $6,190 today's dollars for that amount of money. So basically it was in a semi-expensive toy that was able to run a limited amount of applications It had it didn't have graphics. It had a dot matrix display that was able to display only black and white, and I think it is able to display grayish pixels, and that's it.
I suddenly remember why we should use that.
Yeah, as a terminal.
Yes.
As always.
As a terminal.
Everything is a terminal when you're talking when you're dealing with Linux.
Okay.
But this is one of those things. This is the reason why I have a GX server at home. I haven't powered it up even once. I have an old a mobile VAX workstation that I haven't powered up once.
Is this an episode about both of us, or?
No. But what I want to talk about is what is driving people to get old hardware.
Okay.
And then just have it. Because if you are collecting old cars, I get it. You can drive your old car along. You can invest in it. It's an investment by itself. It is going to grow in value in each year. You're going to have some sort of purpose if you keep it, because you are investing, and so on and so on and so on. But an old computer is going to remain an old computer unless it is something extremely rare, like, I don't know, a prototype of some computer or whatever. It is not going to gain too much value. It is going to have some
the only value that it has might be sentimental value.
Yes, the only value is going to be sentimental, and this is also going to be limited, because once you start using it or try to use it, you're going to realize that there is a reason why we have computers today like we have, because Atari portfolio has an amazing keyboard and enormously crappy display. So it's completely unusable for everything or anything that we are doing today.
Yet again, perfect for you.
It's also perfect for you because
it's a gimmick.
Yes, it's a gimmick. It's the same reason why you have that obnoxious case that you are swearing on in your retro PC.
Obnoxious? It's not obnoxious.
It looks like a transfer case for I don't know, farming equipment with the aluminum tubes and so on. But I'm just...
He doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah, yes, I know. This is the idea. But the reason why we have it is hard to explain.
Okay, well, let's discuss the reasons. So we touched upon the first common reason, which is for sentimental value. So oftentimes we keep our old computers or even buy them after the fact, many, many years after the fact, because we are, people are treating a lot of devices like their toys, or like like their pets, more like pets. I know a heck of a lot of people who have names for their devices, who call them by name actually, and it's always semi-funny and semi-weird to me, but I've come to expect that from people, and nowadays it's just a reminder that we are humans in a sense, because those old things are like pets in a sense.
Yes.
Nothing to add. That's it. You agree?
No, I agree, but there is a whole movement behind it. It's not only old computers. There is not only old computers. Everything retro is working. I think one of the worst or the best offenders right now is Casio.
Okay.
Because they moved into the market of something that used to be, I would say, consumer grade, low level electronics, and they just resurfaced with the same electronics redone at much cheaper prices.
Okay.
So for those of you who are older and didn't bother to look up, you can get older Casio watches, brand new, done by Casio right now today, for $16, $70, $20, $30.
They're insanely popular.
And they're insanely cheap and insanely popular, and you can get models that were popular back way then for dirt cheap prices.
Yeah.
And they're not Chinese knockoffs. They're actually Casio's watches.
I bought a couple of them.
I have one.
I have two.
The one with the calculator.
Okay.
Because I just had to have one.
Actually, okay. In my life, as you know, the obsessed thingy with old stuff goes way beyond computers.
Yes.
I have a collection of very cheap old watches as well, like those with melodies and those with calculators and whatnot. I bought a couple of those Montana watches and Casios as well some years ago. That's cool. I like old guitars. I like old synthesizers as well, so I have a whole bunch of those. But for me, the reason why I collect those is completely the opposite of the reason why I have a bunch of, not so much as I used to, but still a bunch of old computers.
But old computers and old guitars are the same thing as the old computers and the old cars. All guitars are going to gain value.
Okay.
Old computers, unless there is some extreme case, no. You are going to get stuck with basically obsolete hardware that is paying to make run, and then you are going to have problems keeping it running. You're going to keep buying different adapters and the different things that you need to keep the thing running. Also, the software is a problem. Moving software around is a problem because you don't have the capability of some of them are able to run from CDs. This is an amazing plus, but some of those have different older versions of connectors, AUIs, the different versions of networking, BNCs, video, special video graphics connectors, special
as
video
you're
monitors,
discovering
so on,
with Alpha as well.
But Alpha is not the worst offender.
It's not.
I would go with Sun is probably even worse.
It is
with its own monitors and its own
that very
standard
wide connector.
Yes,
one.
and its own standard with where the sync signal goes in the monitor and so on and so on. But this is just those things that people just do. I know a lot of people who are collecting old computers. We have even a dedicated museum in Rijeka that's called Pick and Poke that I usually give my old computers to because I don't have the space or probably the opportunity to show them off. So I'm more likely to just give them away instead of letting them stay in the boxes, just simply because I don't have any use for them. You know that I have an Apple IIc.
Yeah, it's still in our office.
No, it is not. I moved it. Yes, I moved it back.
Oh, okay. It was there recently.
Yes, it was there recently. But the problem is that there is no, other than sentimental value, there is no other reason to use it. The keyboard is awful. The monitor is awful.
Yeah.
Monitor is too small even by any standard right now.
Okay.
And there is no usage scenario that makes sense to power this computer.
Okay.
And it's just sentimental value, and it's just the way it makes you feel. And the way it basically is just like buying, old toy trains, or buying old dolls or whatever.
Okay, that's a part of a second reason why a lot of people do that, which is completely connected to the first one, which is nostalgic reasons. But specifically, when I'm talking about nostalgic reasons, I'm not necessarily talking about the nostalgic reasons of sentimental attachments to something that you have. I'm talking about nostalgic reasons of remembering the time and the place and the surroundings in which you were using them, which is a much wider thing.
Yes.
For example, I got my first computer in the 80s. For me, 80s were the best ever. I mean, there was no decade that was as good as the 80s. In movies, in inventiveness of a lot of things, in computers, in hi-fi, in music, don't even get me started, and whatnot. So it kind of reminds me of that era, which is a complete different type of evocation of, let's say, some kind of an emotional connection to just having, one-dimensional sentimental value for you for 5 minutes, which for me, it's completely different. That's the reason why when I'm talking about various musical instruments and some stuff that are important to me, oftentimes I get very much a little bit lost and start off rants, and time passes. I don't notice, people around me do. I become very boring to everybody, and it is what it is. That's what happens when you are driven by something to use something. It is what it is.
Yes, but the thing is that with all the old computers, sometimes you get the joy of just turning it on.
Yep.
And the amazing thing is that once you try to use it the way it was used when it was new, you suddenly realize that basically it was crap.
Nope, not for me. I understand what you want to say.
And then you go into the forums and the different projects that are covering your computer, whichever computer it is.
If we are talking about non-PCs,
yes,
you're correct.
Then you suddenly realize that people have made TCP/IP networking for Spectrums. They created
wireless for Amiga.
Wireless for Amigas. They created micro SD drives for Amigas, so like you can actually get all. By all I mean all software that is available for Amiga on a single micro SD, and then put into Amiga as separate floppies. Then you suddenly realize that the last Spectrum game, the zxspectrum 64 game, was 48 years. Sorry, was released last year.
Actually, I heard that somebody created a new OS for C64 a couple of days ago.
Yes, but the games kept on releasing. Yeah. They didn't stop for the last 40 years. So you suddenly realize that there is a complete, I wouldn't call it a community. It's different communities that are trying to keep the old computing alive. And the only reason is sentimental. Because it isn't complicated.
Yeah, okay.
But it is not going to make any money to anybody.
Okay. As I said, for me, depending on which computer you're talking about, for me, seeing that first computer was Amstrad. I don't have that one, but I'm planning on getting one if they ever get a little bit cheaper, because they're quite expensive for what they are. I have 664, the new replica from 3 or 4 years ago. I regularly play it. But luckily enough, those games are short enough so that my OCD gaming experience, which translates into I cannot stop gaming, doesn't appear at all. And out of that era, I also have a couple of Ataris, but I never really played those all that much, even in primary school, although one of my neighbors had it. But my Atari experience has always been related to music. So out of those big four, if you want to, and one of my cousins had a Spectrum. I never had that one, although it would be cool to have. But my relationship with those computers is not as much nostalgic or whatever, or let's say sentimental, as it is towards some of the later generation computers that kind of jump-started my IT journey, specifically talking about PCs. That's completely different. For the retro PC that you keep giving me smack about, with all of your humorous flair, that's for me a completely different user experience to any of the modern computers and any of those old computers that I just mentioned. This is not comparable.
I'm going to say that I'm completely different.
Yeah, I know.
I when it comes to retro computing, I draw the line somewhere when the XT went out of business and 26 came to the market.
Okay.
And what I would like to see would probably be a controller that would enable old ST225 RLL disk to function as atmosphere ambience noise generator. No. It just you cannot.
It's not something that you can emulate.
Something you can emulate. That noise that the head made on that particular drive is something that I connect to the old computers, and it was a special thing because this is way back then when you can actually open the hard disk and clean it. I know a guy who he had an old disk that was something like 5 megabytes or something, and he actually opened it and cleaned the inside with alcohol, and this was running then, and completely
berserk idea.
Yes, today this unfathomable today. But the thing is that I draw the line there. I have no inkling of liking anything that came after 286. I don't know why.
Yeah, it's completely different for me. I do know, however, why it is for me. Because, again, we have a little bit of a different background. You started with computing earlier, a couple of these years older. You had some of those early computers before I did. You switched to PCs before I did as well. It was a little bit of a different time. I got my first computer quite a bit later than you did. But for me, when I'm talking about retro PC gaming specifically, not retro gaming in general, the reason why I have completely different level of connection to those first computers, first PCs specifically, that I had is related to all of my side experiences with them. Specifically, after I had, and we described this a couple of episodes ago, after I went from XT to 486 or something like that, this is where my journey of huge interest towards the old computers actually kind of started. Reason is because these are the first computers that I got to open, upgrade, clean, add stuff to, remove stuff from, play with jumpers, play with the BIOS, play with whatever. And already in the first next generation, which was Pentiums, which is why Pentiums are so insanely cool to me, although they can do calculus, the first versions,
yes,
if you remember those, TLB bugs. Basically, for those computers, I didn't need any additional financial aid, so it's not like something was given to me or bought for me. I did that out of my own allowance. I started doing some odd jobs. I started doing side hustles, as we usually call them, student work, whatnot. And I started upgrading all the way to always the latest ones, the strong, the fastest ones. Went all in crazy deep into SCSI, which I'm still to this day. SCSI disks, Plexsters, whatnot. I described this in one of our previous episodes. The reason why that specific computer that I have at home, which is a metaphor for the story that I'm talking about, why it is so important for me is because it included the best hits of everything that was important to me back then, which was odd motherboard with 2 CPUs.
Okay.
Super odd for that time period. High-end CPU, SCSI on board, because this is the P2BDS motherboard,
Okay.
so a legendary Asus motherboard. I have all-in-one graphic card inside of that one as well, which is, if you ask me, a legendary graphics card. A whole bunch of SCSI stuff, filled to the brink with memory as much as it could handle. And as I said a couple of episodes ago, I really need to dig up my old scanner because I will definitely hook it up to that one. The Scanjet 4C, which was SCSI 1 based, Centronics connector based scanner, which was awesome for the time period when I got it. This is where my direct interaction with computers kind of started, because I was disassembling, assembling them, doing that for friends as well. And it went on for more than 10 years after that. This is where I got involved into the financial side of things because I was investing into it. This is where I started learning about all of the components inside out, even more so than previously, although I was already heavily into reading computer magazines and books about that. And this is where I started gaming, for the good and the bad of it.
Yes, but I think that the thing that is different from what I'm trying to get my point across, and from your perspective, is that computers you're talking about have some value, have some usefulness, because you can actually run something that is more or less current on them.
But that's good. You have your own sets of computers. I have my own. All together, they are all computers. So it's cool.
Yes,
for me, 664 is infinitely cool. I still play it. So yeah, no problem.
Yes, but the thing is that what people are missing is that the whole experience behind the computers is...
It's different when you didn't used to have them and then got them versus they were always around me. It's completely different.
This is one thing, and I think that the closest thing to the thing would be collecting perfumes.
For the life of me, I cannot understand that metaphor. Okay, go ahead.
Because the old computer basically has less functionality than a perfume. And you are sentimentally connecting your old computer to some sort of an image, and you are usually connecting a certain perfume to some other sort of image. So actually collecting perfumes is the same thing for your brain as connecting all computers. You are trying to reconnect.
Olfactory senses.
You are trying to reconnect to old memories via a thing that you are buying right now.
Okay, Mr. Psychiatrist meets daytime TV. That's a very good observation. That's good.
So I think this is one of those things that
the smell of all computers, let's say, as well.
Yes.
Can you remember that?
Yes. Mm-hmm. All the carcinogenic things that came into new.
All the lead and everything, Yeah, that's good.
Yes, the thing when they said that we need to remove the lead from the computers, and they said, which lead? There lead in them.
Yeah, there's another reason. I was always the, let's say, the hamster type.
Okay.
And a lot of times I was the hamster type for the things that I couldn't have, which is very common for people. Okay. For me, it was computers and musical instruments. For somebody else, it was something different. Might be cars, might be whatever, plants. Nobody cares. Everybody has their own thing. And after you reach a certain point, let's say in your life, in terms of getting older, getting a little bit more financial power and whatnot, this is what happens in cycles in human history. It's completely cliche what we are talking about, basically. Yes. Complete cliche. That's the reason why the retro PC gaming, for example, is nowadays so popular as well. And the older, let's say, C64, whatever, gaming, because people who were very young at that era have reached usually something around their financial peak power right now. So they can actually afford those things, buy them again, play them, and kind of rekindle the old memories of playing with those things. Because back then you just could not easily buy them on average. Okay? It's not general thing.
Yes and no, because when we are talking about the things like zxspectrum or C64, they were approachable in their price.
Yeah, but you just couldn't buy them in our country.
Yes, okay, in our country, no. But when it came to, for example, Spectrum was, the idea of the Spectrum was that it was around 100 pounds sterling at that particular time. Okay, it wasn't that cheap as it would be 100 pounds today, but it also was a very affordable computer when it comes to what it was compared to anything other on the market. And it was the thing that pushed it. Mm-hmm. And this is the reason why we are talking about it right now, because the sheer number of units that were shipped was enormous.
Mm-hmm. All of those.
Yes.
That's because you had less choice in terms of the different, let's say, manufacturers. You had 3 or 4 of them, that's it. And you couldn't make a choice of, I want this with that, with this, with that, with this, with that. That approach was kind of over and undervalued by the appearance of the PC.
Yes, but also they have identities.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
They have identities.
They have the thing, they have the fling, something. Yes. They have the different type of vibe and the energy than most of the bland modern computers since that time. I agree with you.
Because now the identity comes usually from the applications.
Yeah.
Then the identity came from the computer itself.
And part of identity for you came from that as well. You as a user, because you were much more cool if you had C64 versus if you didn't.
Okay, you can tell it like this, but also Spectrum's ZX81 or Z81, sorry, versus Spectrum ZX. They were completely different machines with different identities, different types of keyboards. They were iterations, but the idea behind the computer was different. Mm-hmm. All the different computers that we had in our schools, Oro, Galeb, Galaxia, whatever, Partner, whatever computers that we had here, all BBC Micro or Acorn or whatever computers different people had, they had their own identities. They came to be because of a reason. They had the whole package was designed for a reason. This reason usually was the cheapness and the idea of availability, so that the IT or the computer knowledge is going to be available to everybody else.
Okay.
And this is the reason why BBC Acorn was created.
We talked about that in the ARM episode. Yeah.
Yes, and the thing that actually just spring back into mind was that BBC Acorn was designed in 4 days. Because they had a deadline, they had to submit something for the tender, so they took them 4 days to create the entire computer. This is completely out of any idea of how a computer could be made today.
Okay, can I go off on a tangent related to music for a second? It's very relevant to the topic that we're discussing. I was recently watching an episode of one of my favorite shows on YouTube related to guitar pedals.
Okay.
Things that you can plug your guitar in and then they change your sound in certain ways. Doesn't really matter in which ways. Back in the 60s, because of some of the changes that were happening in the live music industry, you had different type of development into different directions in terms of how the live sound should work, because back then there were no PAs.
Yes.
Okay, you had to be heard, you had to be loud enough. For that purpose, the people started building amps first, then the amps became louder and louder. Then after that came the PAs, and then somewhere in the middle, people started producing pedals again for doing some kind of a sound modification.
I'm just going to interrupt you for a little bit, because I want to just point one thing out. When it comes to the power of the amplifiers back way then, 50 watts was an enormous power for an amplifier.
It still is.
No, but because they didn't
compared
have any
to the technology of the time.
Yes, because right now we are used to, if you have a concert, it's usually kilowatts.
Tens of kilowatts, yeah.
Tens of kilowatts, but tens of kilowatts, hundreds of kilowatts even. And back way then, it was hundreds of watts on the stage, and that was it.
Yeah.
So you had to create this is the reason why different Marshalls and different amplifiers
why you
exist.
had walls of them all around.
Yes, because
that
you
was
had to have the loud.
The only way in which people
Yes.
could hear you. Yeah, actually. Now going back to pedals. Some of the first generation of pedals were made specifically to amplify the sound, not to change the characteristics, no, not to create distortion or whatnot. Distortion happened as, let's say, a side effect of going with amplification too much. That's a side effect. It is what it is. And it's a commonly used effect in music, and it's excellent. But what actually you conclude when you take a look at the history of those things, every single pedal that was made after the 70s is basically the exact same copy with a little bit of a twist on those original pedals. And why I'm saying this is the following, because the first generation of those pedals was already so freaking good in terms of quality, sound, capabilities, whatnot, that you just, even today when you look at it, down the history lane backwards, they were already so good they didn't need any change. And the point of my 2-minute rant is that people back then knew what the hell they were doing, and they made it work in the first try. And copies of that exist all over the planet right now. And the metaphor that I want to use for computers is exactly the same. People knew what they were doing when they were doing the Acorns, the BBC Micros, the C64s, the Amstrads, the whatever, Ataris, Amigas, and all of the things that came after that. I'm going to come back to PCs in a second. All of those were actually a reminiscence of that. Now, to go directly to the PCs, original PCs, so XT's 286, when you compare those to today, they're exactly the same. You still have the CPU, you still have the memory, you still have the keyboard, you still have the mouse, you still have the monitor, you still have the printer. All of the things, complete concept is exactly the same. They're just faster. And the faster is a function of time, and time because of the fact that time, functionally speaking, gives you more progress as research goes forward and whatnot. Again, people who were doing it back then knew what the hell they were doing.
But I think this is the fundamental for all the things that we take for granted today.
Exactly my point.
This microphone and this microphone, they're the same basically. You just a different
different sponge.
Different sponge. This is the microphone that is 25 years old.
I think even more.
No, I just checked. It was the release, official release for this version was 2001. But this was the version B version. So there was a microphone before that.
It was introduced in the 70s, if I
Yes,
remember
the
correctly.
74. So this
50 years old.
It's 50 years old. This version, but without the B. The thing is that the microphones haven't changed much,
Yeah.
and people still collect all microphones.
Yeah.
Because when they collect all microphones, they are trying to go for the imperfect ones.
Of course.
They are not buying the microphone because they are good.
Exactly.
They are buying microphones because they have that specific bad sound, and they're
No,
trying
it's
to
not
buy-
bad.
No,
it's just
it's different.
colored in a way.
It's colored in a way, but okay. From the perspective of somebody who is just looking at the spectral analysis, it's bad sound because
Okay.
it's distorted in some way.
Or noisy.
Noisy, distorted, lacks some frequencies,
Weird frequency characteristics,
and so
yeah.
on.
Okay.
So, but people are collecting all microphones.
Yeah.
They also have some amount of price, but they are still useful. All computers are the only thing that is not useful.
Which, yours or mine?
Either,
Nope.
because the computers that we are dealing with today stopped having identities as soon as they basically got numbers.
Commoditized, yeah.
They got commoditized and they had to create numbers. It's the same with Audis and BMWs and all the different
Mercs
cars.
and whatever. Yeah, I'm with
because
you.
I think that the worst offender from my perspective is BMW because I cannot tell them apart.
Okay.
I just see that they have different numbering schemes that they're using and basically the same as Intel.
Yeah, what the hell's going on there?
3, 5, and 7, and then some number after it, and then some amount of money for this for the particular model. That's it. But back way then, cars had identities, computers had identities. Even Pentium was an identity by itself.
Yeah.
It was the first processor that had an identity.
That wasn't necessarily numbered, for example.
Yes, but the main reason was that they couldn't copyright the number.
Yeah, I know.
They wanted to just skip the copyright problem. But Z80 wasn't a processor that had identity. Spectrum had identity.
Correct.
602 didn't have identity on its own. It had identity inside different computers because the computer itself was something. So I think that the reason why people like them is because they were created. You could say that you wanted just a piece of art, and sentimental part of it.
It's just repeating what I'm saying.
And the other thing is that the computers that people like to collect and that make absolutely no sense at all is old Apples.
Yeah, I agree.
They are completely useless.
Yes.
But some of them are really pieces of art.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, let's now forget. Usually, those that were created during the Jobs era, the first one, and the second one, the Quadras and the different the models that came in the middle are just beige
Forgettable.
pieces. Yes.
Yeah, forgettable. Okay, I agree with you. So that's all good. But exactly my point was that the initial design was so good that a lot of people kind of like assembled around them in large groups, because those computers that you're talking about were sold in millions of pieces, and those people still exist today in the millions. That grouping was almost to the point of religion at times.
Yes.
There were legendary fights between those four different things that we discussed. And for me, it's exactly the same. Your microphone analogy is exactly on point. So they were perfect back then, they are perfect now. And for me, it's the same with most of the computers that I'm talking about. And I agree with those big four as well prior to those. But there's another point to be made here. There's a reason why PCs are different than that. And you might call that a stupid reason, you might call it a pragmatic reason, you might call it whatever you want, I don't care. The value of PC comes from its compatibility. That's the first reason why I could never think of something that's PC-based as completely and utterly useless, because you will always find a reason why it's useful for you. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples. My first example is the fact that at times I mentioned the SCSI examples with various, let's say, synthesizers, whatnot. I can easily do that on my, Windows 98 PC, retro PC that I have at home. I already have a SCSI controller in, just connect the drive and collect quite a substantial amount of money for less than 20 minutes of work, which I did many times over. So that's one reason. The second reason, which is only something that you can become you become aware as time goes by, to quote the famous movie, is the fact that there are certain pieces of software that you can only run on certain operating systems. So software compatibility is a thing. And just as an example, last year I had a situation with one of my clients who wanted to recover the database from his accounting application, which was MS-DOS based. So there are many different, if you want to find the business reasons why you want to have some old computers, there you go, two perfect ones. And the first one is metaphor, the second one is a real business reason.
Okay, but I also have one of those computers because I have a old 386 at home somewhere. I know this function because I was using it last 6 years ago or so. And the only reason it exists is because it's the only one able to program Motorola's radios.
You have some kind of MS-DOS application which goes over serial port or something?
Yeah, it goes to serial port and the timings are off if you are using any sort of emulator because the serial port itself requires some sort of a clock and it doesn't work on anything that is faster than 386. And it's just a thing. Mm-hmm. But the thing that I also wanted to mention is also the community thing.
Oh, yes.
Because you are not going to have, or there used to be, but there are no more PC user groups. People who use PCs are almost everybody. Mm-hmm. So there's not going to be a PC user group. Okay. There is going to be a Microsoft user group. Usually,
there are many vintage gaming groups available.
But there are many vintage gaming groups. There are Spectrum groups. There are Amiga groups. There
C64 groups.
C64 groups. There are groups that are dealing with intros. They are dealing with demos,
mods,
assemblies,
mods, Amiga mods.
Amiga mods, yes. Yeah. So BBSs.
Yeah.
So different groups that are based on the love of the old technology and talking about the old technology.
Yeah.
And you can talk about the PCs, but it is going to be boring now.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
Yes, it's everywhere. The only thing that is happening right now is that we can talk about how insanely stupid some of the new technology is. And this is just going to be the footnote of a failure of a company in 20 years. Mm-hmm. But right now, what is happening now is not something that is going to inspire any sort of sentiment in anybody.
My wider point of what I was saying about the initial designs of pedals and then the initial designs of computers being done right is actually much more. It's much more, let's say, valuable if you take a look at it from the history point of view, because we're talking about all of that, let's say, time until the end of the 80s. My point is as follows: they did pedals, computers, whatever. Right the first time around, everybody else copied afterwards. And the wider point of that is we haven't innovated.
But we have innovated.
Nope, computers are exactly the same. They're just faster, nothing else. Tell me of a new concept in computing that excited you as something that you were excited about when you were young that happened in the past 5 years. Please go.
AI.
That's not something that's new.
It's not new, but the way it was done right now, the ChatGPT was actually the thing that actually was done correctly. It is
with all of the stuff that it's providing as information which is incorrect.
Yes.
Okay.
Because the speed of it, the ability to the amount of data that was used as input data, and everything else actually. I wouldn't say that it was a correct thing to do. I think this is the
first generation product.
First generation complete implementation of a concept.
Because if you didn't
to be completely honest, the first generation of any computer sucked.
Yeah, generally speaking, you're correct.
Yes, but the idea is AI works. It has its own limits. Limits are immense. We have enormous amount of problems with it, but this is the new technology. This is technology that makes sense.
Just for fun, when we're talking about AI, we had some funny interactions in the past couple of days related to that. Please tell our listeners and viewers, what does your favorite AI tool tell you when you tell it to draw you a picture of a crossover cable?
And there is no way to explain it. I'm going to put it into the description because, or I'm
going to put it into the video.
Put it in the video because there is no other way to explain it, and the reason is, and this is one of those things. The AI thinks that it needs to innovate or create new things, and sometimes people
don't you think that it thinks that it needs to be right?
Not only it needs to be right, but it also needs to reuse things and then create something. And sometimes you basically just need a search engine. And we are starting to lose the search engines.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Suddenly we have a problem with internet becoming an AI-centric thing, and the search engines themselves are changing. Mm-hmm. And if I want to have, for example, I was looking for a simple image of RJ45 connector. I wanted a simple picture of RJ45 connector. That's it. There are probably millions of images of RJ45s on the internet. Mm-hmm. AI decided that you needed to create its own.
Yeah, with double the amount of wires and whatnot.
It's not double the amount of wires. It's basically one had 13 and one had 14 wires. So they weren't even wired in the same number of wires. So nothing was good with this image. And this is the thing that is going to become a problem later.
It's already right now, if you ask me.
I see that people are going to, there are going to be some people who are going to start collecting old software and old media before AI. Mm-hmm. They are called internet historians right now.
Okay.
But there are going to be more and more people who are going to try to preserve the state of the software and state of the technology and the texts and the documents that we have right now before the AI took its toll on it.
So just like we are doing with old PCs.
Yes.
Okay.
Internet
historical reasons.
Yes.
Okay.
Internet Archive right now is something like this.
Yeah.
And Internet Archive has stopped being just a footnote in the history of the internet. Suddenly it has become something that is
source of truth, information, and a lot of stuff related to everyday life, actually.
Yes, because it is not tainted by AI. AI is ruining things for people, and the AI is doing the same thing as the PC did for the old computers.
Okay, that's
because
good.
right now, we're going to see the synergy, or whatever you could call it, of every application becoming the same as any other application, because everything is going to be AI enabled. So nothing is going to work.
I mean, even Veeam for backup has an AI assistant.
I'm expecting that Microsoft is going to release just a Microsoft Copilot is going to ask you, as the Clippy did, what do you want to do today?
Yeah, it's a Clippy version 2.
Yes, but it's going to be worse, because it's going to ask you, do you want me to create a PowerPoint presentation? Do you want to create a Word document? Mm-hmm. And you're going to say, I need a document for presentation. Fine. Mm-hmm. And then you're going to get something. And
random,
yes. And this is going to be a problem later. Mm-hmm. But from sentimental reasons, 20 years from now, this is going to be something that people are going to be wanting to keep. Okay, this particular computer I can see as something that is going to make sense in 10 years.
Okay.
Because the first generation of a new technology, a new architecture. The same way that the first generation of Intel-based Apples made sense, and the last generation of G5-based Apples made sense.
PowerPC, okay.
Yes, but this is just when the technology changes, people want those computers.
So you want to tell me that because of the fact that I have one of those G5s at home, I'm going to become rich in 20 years?
No, because it won't work. The capacitors are crap, and you need to change them as soon as possible.
I will hire you to do that, because you have been so excellent for that.
No, I'm not going to go into this.
Okay.
But anyways, do you have anything else to add other than sentiment?
Yeah, retrogaming. We have to have a short chat about this. So for me, I don't really care if it's retro gaming on an emulator, which I used to do a lot. is it retro gaming on a PC or an actual piece of hardware? Okay. I used to play MAME emulator quite a lot, way too much, for those arcade games that you used to have in, various types of, amusement parks and whatnot. Those things are super fun. A lot of those games are just indescribably fun for us, not necessarily for the younger generation, because we are different. It's okay. We have our own fundamentals which are different. The C64 thingy that I have at home, again, a metaphor for, let's say, hardware-based solution, not a software-based solution on a PC, works really well within the realms of what it was intended to do, which was to have, 100 games on, which are the most popular ones. All that works well. It has good joysticks. It has HDMI output. I can connect it to any TV. Very happy with that. But still, the nostalgic piece of me, my beating heart goes to the idea of having what I built, which is the retro PC that I described, because then I can watch all of those beautiful images of Windows 95, 95 OS2, or OSR2, 98, 98 SC, being deployed for 150th millionth time, then trying to work out the RQs and the DMI addresses and IO addresses for Sound Blaster and for network card and for SCSI controller and whatnot, because that was first crappy and very much annoying. Then afterwards it was kind of fun, and then it disappeared. And on top of that, I can install some of my favorite games of all time. Basically, the games that I used to play a lot after I've grown up, if you want to call that way. Not that I'm ever going to grow up, obviously. All of the most important games for me, which I used to play for enormous amount of time, were a part of that era. So Full Throttle, Dune 2000, Dune 1, Dune 2, and the first Command & Conquer. Those are my top 5 games of all time. I don't care what anybody else thinks.
I'm going to just interject and say one thing.
And those will run on my retro PC perfectly.
I have no problems with that, because I have
just need a CRT screen.
Yes, this is the thing I was want to point it out. The CRT, cool. The CRT and the TV screen.
Yeah.
Because the only thing that actually makes sense when collecting old computers is collecting old monitors and collecting old TVs.
Yeah.
Because if you have a C64 emulator on an LCD,
mm-hmm.
it's not as close to what it looked like on the CRT.
It's not in the same galaxy.
Yes, and this is the reason why people are right now looking for old CRT monitors,
mm-hmm.
because the games look different.
Yeah, they do.
They look different, the refresh rate is different, and the game look better usually.
There is nothing in the world that can replace the sound of a CRT-based monitor degaussing.
Okay. But also there is nothing that can replace the color bleed in the CRT monitor.
Correct.
And the way the colors themselves look like on the CRT monitor.
Exactly the reason why I like plasma screens versus LCDs.
Okay, but right now we're talking about retro gaming. So there is a point in retro gaming. Retro gaming has its own merits, and I'm not against that. But people who do retro gaming usually don't collect things. They collect things that are centered around certain games that they like,
mm-hmm.
but they're not going to collect old computers. They're going to collect
a computer
okay. for a particular game, because they have a game they like.
Okay.
And this is the game that they're going to spend thousands and thousands of hours on.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're going to bitch about the game being too expensive, because it used to be $8, now it's $9. And
I already bought them, so I don't care. But yeah.
No, because I was referring to a thread I saw yesterday, because there is a game that people are playing for hundreds and hundreds of hours, and the developer said that he's going to up the price of the game from $7 to $9. And they said this is just a steal, he's trying to make money out of us and so on. And somebody said, but hey, you played for 400 hours.
Mm-hmm.
If you divide the amount of money you are paying for the game by the number of hours you're playing with the game,
it's cents, thousands of cents.
Basically, the amount of money you're paying for the electricity bill is bigger than the amount you're paying for the game.
Mm-hmm.
So stop just being annoying and just buy the game.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of those things that people do. But all computers are separate from everything else.
You think?
Yes, because they don't make sense. All watches make sense. Old guitars make sense.
Definitely.
Guitar pedals make sense.
Old synthesizers
make sense. Old cars make sense.
Yeah.
But you're not going to see a person collecting, I don't know, Teslas.
You never know. It's too young in history yet.
And I think they're going to fall apart too soon. But it's just me. The thing is that right now, I think that collecting all computers, collecting all hardware, is completely different from anything else, because you are getting something useless and not using it, just owning it, and then feeling happy about it.
Okay, just like you buying crappy cheap stuff like those copies of Rode mics from the HI site. That's exactly what it is. Yes.
But it's a different thing. They're supposed to have a purpose.
Yet they don't. The purpose of that was basically to exchange information, how cool they are.
Okay.
Or to pinpoint design flaws of certain much more expensive solutions that they were copied from.
I'm going to make a video on it, and we're going to talk about this, but this is going to be for a later episode. So I think we should finish now.
Okay.
The main reason being I have absolutely no voice left. So
I would like to go on now even more.
so I'm just completely off with my voice.
Yeah, he's wasted.
Yes. So thank you for being with us.
Yeah. It's a beginning of a series of episodes.
Yes.
Trust me on that one. Okay. And yeah, he's been Yasmin, I've been Vedran, and see you in the next episode.
Thank you. Bye.